You don't want coffee.
I wish I could have coffee, but like,
To mess you up.
yes, big time. Even the smell of it, I can't even walk down the coffee aisle at the
Oh,
grocery store.
goodness, really?
Wow. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Flavored stuff doesn't. So I wish I could.
I wish you could too. I know, that would be better, right? Okay. Okay, guys, so we're good to go. We're streaming right now.
Oh, the financials. Can I connect the internet?
Yeah. Do you have the code for that, Mama? Was everybody able to access the OneNote okay?
Yeah.
I knew that would make you happy too.
No, I've been waiting for. It's so much easier than to send the attachment.
Yeah.
Just go through OneNote. That's the way we, before you guys joined, we always use OneNote.
Hold on, I'm gonna go get you a call.
So I've been asking for OneNote.
But if there's people like, because I know, I mean, I'm okay with OneNote. I use it a lot for the board meetings and such, but if anybody here is not a fan of it and would rather have the PDF attachments, I can totally send you
I don't like it, but I can live with it.
that.
I use, when I was working, I used OneNote before, so I love OneNote.
Honestly, we always use it. That's just what you're used to.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't use Mac. I always use Microsoft, but not get used to the.
The one more. No, I think whenever you're ready to get started.
Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
All right, that's call to order for our November Finance Committee meeting at 8:38. Want to discuss any old business?
Nothing on the agenda for old business.
Okay, action item. Before we start, I do want to thank Rory. That was a very great report that you put together for our 2021 budget meeting. And I agree, it was a lot of hard work that we put toward to a lot of good discussions took place. A lot of good stuff put into due place to be responsible. And I saw your email. I also saw what Tasha, responded back. It didn't look like they just totally disagree with our recommendation, right? They're still gonna reconsider. So can we want to discuss some of those items?
Like to.
I was just wondering, why didn't they take the time in a board meeting when they're talking about the whole community to go over our recommendation? We did the hard part for them. And they just needed to go down the list and they didn't. And it was so, to me, it was very disrespectful, our efforts and time for them to not go over it properly in a board meeting so that the homeowners could see what they were considering. And they just passed the budget as was, and we can talk about it later. I don't know, and that's what I said in the email. Nothing really to be said or done at this point because it was decided and we moved on, but I didn't think that was appropriate to ask a committee to volunteer our time and prep and put our efforts in, and we were here for 4 hours. And for the board to just say, it's fine, let's just move on. That doesn't make me feel good as a volunteer in putting my time into it. I can't speak for all of you, but that's just how I felt about it.
I totally agree. And I guess my question is, yes, they went ahead and just approved it, disregarded all of our, suggestions. Are they going to, what assurance, I guess, do we have they're going to take some of those into consideration? That bothers me greatly because I'm just not, that's what I'm used to.
Right.
And, that enormous, the thing that has bothered me the most since our meeting is that enormous security. What guarantee do we have they're going to look at all this stuff? That they're just not going to blindly go with that meeting. And I agree. If they're not going to, what are we doing?
Right.
We might as well not be here.
I hear you. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of assurances, for me, I obviously cannot give you any kind of assurance because I work at the board's direction. I will tell you that they've got all the information in front of them. They had it before the meeting as well. That's the list that I provided you guys with as a response to your email. That was the same list I provided to the board prior to the board meeting so that they could review it ahead of it. So they've got that. It's in current review right now. In regards to the GLs, I think most of our discussion was about like creating a lot of GLs and breakouts and, moving some things over to new GLs. So that's stuff that we can still do. In fact, I've already had all those GLs created. And then when the actual budget was adopted, as I stated, that was without the removal of the post from the budget. The board has agreed at this point that they do not want to replace the 9 positions, right? They want to just keep it at 7, but they didn't want to change the budget number for that. So although we are going to stay at 7 until, whenever COVID maybe goes away or starts to subside, and things start to pick up a bit. But for right now, they've got us hanging at 7. So they definitely agreed with the finance committee just in regards to not being able to utilize 9 people right now, but they wanted to have that option should they need to add 1 or 2 people back in at some point. So it's basically everything that I outlined in that email yesterday, and I know that's not exactly what you guys want to hear. So it's just, for me, it's going to be following up with the board and finding out where they're at, just with those items that haven't been undecided at this point.
So, in the past meeting, we always had a board member present at our meeting. So what I would like to request is for our next meeting to have somebody show up and providing us the reasons behind to not adopt our recommendation for what we submitted from our meeting last time. We spent a lot of effort. We spent a lot of disagreement to come to a consensus. A lot of things that we didn't agree, but we know what is the best for the community in regard to a financial stability of province. So it's not something we just look at the item and then just say, okay, we do this. We put a lot of thought into every item we discussed. So what I would like to request is to have a member attend our next meeting, or maybe schedule a meeting earlier before next month, and to give us some feedback
Yeah.
on the reason behind it. Because if not, then why are we having finance committee to provide financial overview and provide feedback? So I think that's what I would like to recommend in regard to have board member to provide us some feedback on what's their thought process.
I would just like to add that we got the budget at the very last possible second. We only had it about a week in advance. And we still came together. We made the appointment, the meeting times, and we dedicated 4 hours of our time here. Like we said, we spent a lot of time on it. So then I would like to assume that the board, who represents the whole community, would put in some amount of effort as well. I think that meeting was only 45 minutes long. Like I said, we did all of the hard work for them. They should have been able to go down the list in the board meeting so that they could have provided that feedback in the board meeting. You know what I mean? They could have gone through it and said, I agree with this because, I disagree with this because, and they should have gone down it in a board meeting so that all the homeowners could see that as well. But instead they just tabled it. And if they're discussing it via email or other meetings that they have, that's not very transparent. The homeowners need to see, and us included, because we put that work into it. We want to see how they're deciding something. So they decided not the employees. They did talk about that briefly in the meeting. I do know that, but we had a long list
Some big items.
that they just didn't even look at it, as far as I'm concerned. And so they can't say, well, we didn't have time to look at it. Well, they had it at the same time we did, and then we did the hard work for them already. And so they only need to look at the condensed list in 2 days' time. If we can look at the whole budget in a week or less, they can look at a condensed version in 2 days. But they had the budget as well, a week prior. So, and it just appears like they didn't even look. They didn't even look at the budget, and then they didn't even look at our work. And it was very unsettling to me to see that they just dismissed it like that. Dismissed all of us. It was a group effort.
Totally agree.
Understood. Absolutely.
I really do.
Anyway,
And
I get the idea. Making sure someone comes to their
Yeah.
next meeting to provide what we're thinking.
Yeah, once the document says, are they still gonna adopt? Because at this point, we don't know.
Right.
Are they going to still adopt? Because that's what over $300,000 potential savings.
Yeah.
That we come up with for us to be able to look at the potentially not to reduce the loan money that we took out for the new crop. We want, I think the first most important thing is try to get that loan paid off. Then we don't have that loan over our head.
And that is something that is a part of their list that they're reviewing right now for consideration.
Okay.
That was one of those items that didn't need to be decided as part of the adoption of the budget. It's just something that they can decide on at the end of the year when they know what their surplus is.
Well, that's what I wanted to know what's their thought process. So if they could have one person show up here, they could have their prior meeting, have their consensus when they come to meet with us and give us some of the feedback. Our recommendation, any of those items you recommend, are they going to adopt or they just going to dismiss them all? Oh, look, majority of it, I shouldn't say, oh, because they did accept your items.
Yep.
All right, do we, I know Katie has some items sent it to Tasha. Were you satisfied with the responses?
We're still working on some of them. Some of them we have, some of them, the answers have been provided. Some we're still working on basically the insurance and a couple other items.
So the questions that Katie's referring to that she and I are still working on are from past financials.
Okay, so it's not August.
No, for the August ones,
One of them is August. It's
yeah, absolutely.
negative $2,261.25 for legal attorney fees for August. But we're working on it.
Yeah.
So
So do we want to make a motion to accept the financial report for August?
I wouldn't quite yet. I actually have a question real fast. For patrol service, it says 0 for that for August. Is that accurate?
Year to date?
Yes. It seemed like it would be accurate to me.
I don't know, I used to deal with shared services. I know sometimes they don't always post information timely. I don't know, that could be the issue, I don't know.
For patrol services, I feel like, Felicia, wasn't there a thing where they had, there was like a double payment?
There was a reimbursement, not a double. Yeah, I know that they switched to a new system, and so they billed this like from one half of services, and then when it came out later, we got the other half in September. And it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It shows that we spent
What
nothing.
is on the, what's on the general ledger for 0635?
So, GL. It looks like there was an accrual from August. That was washed with the actual invoice that came in. So the accrual happened like August 1st, and then the actual invoice came in August 13th, washing it out to a 0.
How much is the accrual for?
The accrual froze for the exact amount of the invoice, $70,107.01. Talk to me.
Well, I'm sorry, my brain's still half asleep, so I'm trying to.
You're fine. Take your time. I think typically when accruals are done, right, they're done further in advance of the invoice coming in. So accrual might happen like a month or maybe 2 months ahead of something that's actually going to hit. In this case, I think because they hit in the same month, that's the wash, and that's why.
But it's still trying to spend because now you show.
It shouldn't wash out though. Like I get what you're saying, but it shouldn't wash out though, because basically you're showing $0 spent for the month of August, but yet we received an invoice for 70,000. So, and it was paid, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like it's being done right.
I wonder if it's going to show on in September's financial report. It's a double because it is that amount. It's a huge amount of money. It's not $2. So they may, that's why I say we share service. I don't know how they work. Sometimes they may cut the expenses, but the report has already established.
Yeah.
So that's why I say sometimes I don't even look at September's number here because they are so different compared to a month-to-month payment. Like maybe you could take a look at that to see are we going to see double payment, or are we going to use that amount way back to August?
Well, makes sense. That's understandable, but it can't And the wash is understandable, but not at the same, not to
Correct,
completely
yeah.
zero it.
Yeah.
Right.
They need to could, that makes it more real, but can't wash it.
That make a major difference for August
Yes,
financial report.
much.
Right.
So we want to table the financial report for August until we get that
I would.
clarified.
And it's a postponement.
Yeah.
Then just a side note from water, are we getting fined by the water district for any leaks yet?
No.
Just looking at that, it's
Okay.
between actual and budget.
I'm actually pretty surprised that we're not, to be honest with you.
Where are we getting fined?
Why, yeah.
Because there's such a big difference.
When the water district knows that something's leaking and you don't fix it, they fine you a lot of money.
A lot of the same particular area. So these are leaks in specific areas. And once Brightview is made aware of it, it's taken care of. It's not like a valve that's stuck open or anything like that. It's a repair that needs to happen. And so if they're happening on different valves, different meters, they're not going to come out and fine us specifically because it's being taken care of within a certain amount of time. It's not leaking for months and months and months where you would see a fine.
But what about the irrigation that still hasn't been replaced though, that everybody keeps talking about that everything's leaking? And we haven't replaced the irrigation that needs to be replaced.
So again, so when there is a leak, there is a coupler that goes onto that specific area, and that line may break somewhere specific 3 to 4, 5, 6 feet down the line. But again, it's not leaking for months and months and months. It's leaking for that particular moment, and it gets taken care of. It is a temporary.
That's what it
Correct.
is.
It's a coupler.
I just reported the one by North Stamford. It was so much water that morning when I think it was, maybe it was last week, so I submitted on the report. And I knew it's the following day when we walked by, there was no leak. So they do, as soon as they get a report, I know they will have the workmen there to maybe put a temporary valve or whatever.
It's called a coupler, and
Yeah.
until they can replace the entire line, I mean, that's what the fix is, that's what the fix has been over the last 13 years, so.
So we're not getting fined by the.
We're not,
We're really not.
We'll get a notification from the water district, and they'll say, hey, we noticed that there is, water running or something like that, and we send that over to the irrigation tech, they go to that meter, but by that time, that irrigation tech has already taken care of it, so it's kind of like a proactive approach, but we get a reactive response.
They know we're taking care of it.
When the irrigation is on, it's not like a stuck valve where there's just continuous water going through that valve. It's only when the system is on.
Any other question in regards to action item?
Chu, did you second the postponement? I know Katie motioned for postponement. Okay. All in favor of that? Brenda?
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that's good to open comment period.
So that means we have not approved, we have all financials from what, February now through August?
So the board has already accepted those financials
Right, so
through July, I believe.
No open comment. Okay. Then the next meeting date is December 3rd.
So usually we're dark in December for committee meetings, but I feel like committees were kind of put off this year. We didn't meet for several months during the beginning of COVID and whatnot. So I'm perfectly fine with having a December meeting. If you guys would like to, we can review. Pretty soon I'm going to be sending you guys out the September financials as well. So then we can re-review August and September at that time, as well as present to talk to you guys about the budget.
I
and give you some
definitely
feedback.
I definitely want to get the feedback on the
Yeah,
board
for sure.
member about the budget for 2021.
Absolutely.
My only question would be that the Thursday. Can we play around with the date later?
Yeah. This is just I was just kind of choosing it like a month out from now. So it's,
Do it Wednesday again on the 2nd. I can't do Thursday morning.
You want 9 o'clock's better for you too, isn't it?
I can do 8:30.
Okay.
just gotta drop
I
my kids
remembered
off.
afterwards, you said one time, okay.
Yeah, that way, because the school schedule is different this year, I've been able to, I can get here by 8:30.
December 2nd, I'm open.
8:30,
I can do 8:30.
and that's gonna be a combination of a board member giving us input on the budget, and then August hopefully, and September.
Can you let us know when you ask them to show up for the meeting? I would like to get a feedback whether or not they're gonna attend before December 3rd.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll let you
If they
guys
don't,
know
I
once I have
don't wanna reach
confirmation.
out to them. If they don't wanna show up for the meeting, but we always have a liaison here.
Yeah.
Always. We haven't had a liaison. since You two get on board. Because we always have a liaison here from the board, kind of help us along and then also give us a very good feedback on their
Absolutely.
perspective.
Yeah.
And absent of that, I think sometimes it's just not, you're gonna rely on you, not saying you can communicate, but just another gap we have to get through.
Yeah, absolutely. I
It puts
agree.
you out of the middle a little bit, because you're right now, we've got questions, and it's putting you in a spot, because we'd like to really know. But I know I really want to know about the input we did. And if they're considering it, so if they could come like Mark used to, somebody.
Yeah.
Or, you
Well, and
know,
two, keep in mind, we've got the board election coming up next month, right? Or this month, rather. I can't believe it's already November. But so that's going to be, possibly two new board members. There's going to be a reorganization of the board at that point in terms of positions. And also they'll have to be choosing new liaisons for the committees. And so I think that's going to be key to having our liaison back at the committee meetings.
And I think it's for the board's benefit.
Oh,
For the
most definitely. I
benefit as
agree.
well.
Yeah.
With finance was the major discussion and concern of the community residents.
Sure.
Especially with the price went up this year, it would be in their benefit to come out here than for us to be as a whole, to work together for our finance. So for them not being in this meeting, it's not helping themselves. And then for us, since we are volunteer to be on the board, they approve us to be on the board, on the committee, they trust our ability to help in regard to finance for the community. I think it would be good for them to be able to be part of it, to have that discussions on some of the items that we talk about.
I like it.
Yeah.
When they come, I want them to go over, not the budget line item, our line items, the condensed version. I don't want them to come and say, well, we just thought we'd talk about it later and just kind of give us a broad political answer. I'd like them to have whatever the list you provided, the list I created. I'd like them to go down each one and say, well, this is what we're thinking about this one, and this is what we're thinking about this one. That's what I'd like. I would like a detailed explanation of why they didn't go out for recommendations. I don't want to blanket, well, we just thought we'd talk about it later type answer. I want them to look at it and tell us each line item what was on their minds when they decided to talk about it later.
and I agree with that. And like both ladies mentioned, part of our responsibility is, the biggest concern, as we all know from the last meetings and other meetings, and finances. We're trying, the whole 4 hours was on the benefit of Providence, our discussions and all of that. We're trying to help Providence and them. And by just blanketing it, it's like they don't care. And so, somebody needs to come and tell us. Because to me, as a resident, when I read that, it's like, you're spending just as much money, you've given no consideration to anything. And I think we came up with a lot of good points. So, they're not helping themselves in the community, and they're gonna, I won't be all surprised if they're not a heck of a target at the whole meeting. And I don't see that they have much to back themselves up with. Just coming from a professional standpoint. it's not too much CYA was going on.
If it helps, encourage them to watch this meeting. What we're talking about. We're not here for very long. They can watch.
Yeah.
They can watch this. They can watch the finance committee meeting or what's today? November 4th. They can watch it. We're all sharing what we're thinking. Take the middleman out of it, so you're not having to juggle communication issues. Just let them hear us.
Well, and I think it's important that they do, you know, and I think that it's not going to be an issue getting somebody here to go over everything with you guys and, you know, give you at the very least their own perspective of what they were thinking as a board member.
Not we're blowing smoke.
So we all set for the next meeting date, meeting adjourned. This is very productive. The 9:05. Thank you, everybody.